I'm CJ Peterson, and welcome to The Journey is Real. We talk to real people with real passions who share a real portion of their hearts. Today, my guest is going to be Fran Graham, and we've titled her podcast, Rising from the Ashes. Thank you for coming on today, Fran.
You're most welcome. Thank you for having me, CJ.
My pleasure. You have quite a unique background that enables you to fully understand when someone's going through emotional trauma. On The Journey is Real, the journey to get there is just as important as the passion itself. Can you please kind of go back and just bring us on the journey forward, and then we can tackle the emotional trauma portion of it?
Sure, yeah. I experienced trauma fairly on in my life, in the sense that I had a brother that died when I was very young, and then my grandfather committed suicide. I lost a couple of school friends to car crashes, and so I experienced loss at a very, very young age. I then, when I was an adult, became a police officer in the United Kingdom and loved my career as a police officer, love helping people. I always was the kind of person that people would go to when they needed help or when they needed somebody to talk to. So I enjoyed my career as a police officer, but in England in those days, you didn't have the same support systems that you have here in the US nowadays. So if an officer in England was struggling with stress or any kind of traumatic response, you didn't talk about it. You just pulled your big girl, bootstraps up, and you went back out the next day and you did it again and again and again. And after time, I crashed.
Yeah,
And
that's
unfortunately,
not
didn't have.
healthy, and it's going to continue to pile on. And so there's like a balance between too sensitive and dealing with issues that need to be taken
Yeah,
care of. I mean,
yeah,
I'm a Texan. We have the buck up sister sort of rule, but
right,
you know,
right.
there's a certain level where you have to do some self-care in there with it.
You do, and certainly, any human being has to have times when we buck up, right? I mean, you sometimes you just have to get the job done and get through the situation at hand that you're dealing with right now, especially as the first responder. You have to deal with this
Yep.
situation right now, but you have
And
to give
just
yourself
kind of
breathing time afterwards.
yeah, you got to compartmentalize, and then later you can open it back up.
Exactly. And so in my situation, when I tried to ask for help, I did. I knew I wasn't right. I tried to ask for help. I went to my line managers in the police force, and they basically said, we're all going through the same stuff. Just get back out and do your job. There was no, okay, well, let's see what help we can provide for you. And there was certainly was a big stigma in those days. I mean, you didn't talk about mental health issues. And there was the belief that if you even mentioned the fact that you were feeling stressed, your colleagues, your peers in the police department couldn't trust you to have their back if things went pear-shaped. So you just had to keep quiet and just try and deal with it the best you can. But that didn't work for me.
Yeah, well, and it doesn't work for you with the fact that you're a female in a male-dominated position too.
That's true. Yeah, that's true. And there is an element. I mean, even nowadays, the women have to sort of, outrun and outfight and outshoot and outswear the guys, right?
Yep.
And that, I mean, that just isn't me. That really isn't me. But you do feel the pressure. You do feel the pressure, even in the work I do now. I mean, I still work with many police agencies and fire agencies, and I work in disaster relief and have done for many years as a trauma responder and as an instructor, because I don't want people to end up crashing and burning like I did. But even in that career field, you still have to be very tough. You still have to be able to run with the big boys and hold your own. And I'm good at doing that.
So I know, I kind of understand, and I get from where you're coming from, because I'm the same way. A lot of people come to me. My question is, what do you do, or who do you go to when you need to deal with it? Because a lot of times people come to strong people or those who are sensitive and kind of to people's feelings, but who do you go to? Because you have to have another outlet.
That is a really good question, CJ. You're absolutely right. I actually have a therapist, and I started seeing a therapist before I even needed one, because I recognize that in this line of work, in fact, not even just in this line of work, I tell everybody, you should have a therapist, whether you think you need one or not, because at some point in life,
You're gonna need
something
one.
is going to crash into your life at such a state of speed that you are going to be knocked off your feet. That's not a time to find a therapist, because ideally the therapist needs to get to know you when you are at your best, so they had a baseline that they can get you back to. If
Yeah,
they
it's
just meet
kind
you
of
when everything's falling apart, they're
yeah,
not
it's
going to be
kind
there
of
very,
exactly. It's kind of like having a doctor. You need
yeah,
to do your doctor, your initial checkup, preferably before you need the doctor. So
right.
the doctor knows that, okay, this is where she normally is. And so it's the same thing with a therapist. They kind of go in and you can give them the basic gist of this is my background so far.
Right.
I just want to make sure that you and I are on the same page. So when crap hits the fan and I call you,
Yeah,
you know that I'm not one that normally freaks out.
exactly. Exactly. And that's so true. So yeah, I have a therapist. I actually have several, not only because I say that as a slight joke. I do have several, I have several, oh my gosh, several friends that are therapists. But that's because I've had to build those relationships so that I have people that I know and trust that I can refer people to.
Mhm.
So I surround myself with people who are in the field of work I'm in. I'm a chaplain, I'm a trauma responder. I have other people that I work with that are in the same field. They get me, they know me, they've seen me in my worst and on my best days. And so if I don't see my therapist, I'm always chatting to one of them. I have a good support system, is what I'm saying.
So I have a question. You
Yeah.
went from high stress and not a lot of support in the police officer position to now trauma response. What made you first of all make that shift? And then second of all, what made you make the leap toward trauma response as opposed to maybe something else less stressful?
That's a really good question. Yeah, I just put myself in stress every day, right? No, that's a really good question. The thing is, I care about people.
Mhm.
I learned the hard way how to get through the stuff that I had to get through. And I thought, you know what, there needs to be more resources out there. There need to be people trained to come alongside in my field of work, mainly first responders and people impacted by disasters. So I deploy into disasters as well and provide emotional and spiritual care in disasters.
Mhm.
And my reputation in the areas where I have worked organically grew. And so I began to be invited in to different scenarios and different situations. So it just happened organically. When I had left the police in England, my husband, who is from the US, wanted to move back to the States. So once we got here, we were living in California, which is where we first settled. I had an amazing opportunity to work with several fire and police agencies since 2002 to today. And in those years, I have just found so many people that need more support and more resources to deal with acute stress of the job. So I just got educated, CJ. I just thought, you know what? I want to help these people. I just got educated. And then I ended up working in disasters. And now I'm an international public speaker and an instructor. And it just grew organically. So there's not really one pivotal point where I could say, oh, I made that decision.
Mhm.
It's just in me. It's just in me. I was sent away to boarding school at the age of 8. And in boarding school in England, you go to school and you don't come home again until maybe spring break or the summer holidays or the winter holidays. So I was at school for many, many weeks at a time at the age of 8.
Mhm.
I just learned to pull up my bootstraps and got on with it. But other people who didn't do so well came to me when they were feeling homesick. So
Mhm.
I've always, as we've already mentioned, I've always been that person people just come to. But it means that continued on as an adult into how can I still care for people? How can I still make a difference in people's lives and provide something that I was lacking when I needed it? So if I needed it, I know other people need it.
Exactly. And like I said, I'm the same way. Like I can walk
Yeah,
into a room and tell you what the emotional temperature is of over half those people in that room.
right, right,
And it's like when you are like that, a lot of times you have a lot of people coming to you. Your way of working with it that you needed because you needed it and help in a high stress, high trauma situation. That makes sense that you're moving to the high stress, high trauma area to help out because the person who walks it usually is the best person to help figure it out.
right.
Me, that's why I started the journey is real. I came from a domestic violence survivor situation. And so for me, I didn't have a voice. And so the journey is real is a way for me to give people a voice.
Right.
And so it makes sense. That's kind of how, how we are and how we land is done for a reason.
Right.
And
Exactly. Exactly.
no, I
And the thing
totally
is,
get
but like you're doing already, paying it forward is pivotal. It's vital because we've got to share what we've learned.
Mhm.
Um, gone are the days when ancient people would sit around the fire and share their stories. We now have to do it on podcasts and in books. Yeah,
Exactly.
but it's still the nature of humanity, isn't it, to share what knowledge we've learned and to pay it forward. And I love helping people, and I don't
Right.
want them to end up broken.
Well, and here's the beauty of your past allows you to speak in an area that not a lot of people are invited in. That blue line is a tight line.
Yeah,
And so, because of your past police force, you can actually help officers in a better position than somebody who's never been a police officer or a
true.
peace officer of any kind or security or
That's true.
anything, because
Yeah,
you've been there, you've done it, you've walked it, and now you're wanting to help people. It's like when it's kind of like I have radar when it comes to like military people. I grew up military kid, and I also have radar when it comes to people
right,
in domestic violence situations. And it's the same thing where they're
right.
drawn to me and I'm drawn to them because it's like somehow we got a radar or something. I don't know how it works or why it works, but it's like I
Yeah,
can tell them that, you know what, this is how I dealt with it. And they're like, oh my gosh, you understand. So when you go to police officers or firefighters in different situations and high trauma situations, they're like, you get it, you understand. How in the world do I do this? Yet, especially the females, still protect my reputation in these jobs.
right. So true. It's so true. I was chatting to a police officer friend of mine from California last week, and he was saying, I don't have to explain to you why I think the way I think, or why I feel the way I feel, or why I respond. He says, you just get it.
Mhm,
Whereas other people don't. And that is, as you've said, that's huge.
mhm. It is definitely, and that's the beauty of like the journey is real.
Right.
So I can't technically speak into the lives of police officers because I haven't walked it, but you have.
Mm.
And you're not putting a face and a voice behind it so that other officers can go, oh, hey, she gets it. I can get a hold of her and she can help me or at least guide me or, send me in a certain direction. And
Right.
that's the beauty of the Journey's Real because it talks to real people,
Hmm.
and who share a real portion of their hearts and, what it is they've been through. And social media, this is my biggest soapbox is social media because people put on like their best face. Everything's unicorn, roses, rainbows, and it's like, you know what? That's not real life. I am a realistic person. I'm a realistic Christian. And so I'm just like, that is totally not real life. And so being on the journey is real. I've met so many different people who walked so many different paths. And
Hmm.
it's like, I promise you, there was at least somebody somewhere on my podcast who has walked your path that you can get a hold of.
Yeah.
And that's the beauty behind the journey is real. Now, you've taken us on this journey and you've kind of brought us forward a little bit. What is it you do? How do you help people? You mentioned that you're a speaker. You mentioned you have a website. What are the resources on your website? Because there's quite a few of them.
So on my particular website, it just has lists of all of the courses that I offer. I offer courses ranging from half a day to 2 days. And then there are also lists of speaking topics. So if somebody wants a public speaker to come in and speak about a specific topic, there are some soundbite type topics that I am happy to speak on. And it all comes under the umbrella of emotional and spiritual and mental health. It just does, but it can be tailor-made and fine-tuned to whatever the need is. And then also on my website is a link to my book, my new book, which is called What to Do When Life Sucks, which
I
is,
love the title.
thank you. It's funny because so many people say, oh, this sucks, or life sucks, or it sucks when this happens. And I thought, okay, well, that's the in word right now. So let's talk about what to do when life sucks. But
I
thank you.
like it.
it, it is a bit sort of tongue in cheek, but it's also true. But that's just being released on Amazon, and that's available in 10 different nations. So if any of your listeners are in other nations,
They're all over the world.
yeah, so hopefully they'll be able to you get that. And to be honest with you, if they can't find it in their nation, I'm happy for them to reach out to me through my website, and I'll mail them a copy. Because this book is it was my way to duplicate myself. I have got so many people who want to hear this message and those who need to hear the message, but I can't be everywhere at once. So I thought, let's just put this in a book and just get it to as many people as possible. But what I will say is that this whole topic, as you know, because of your experience, this whole topic is so deep and so vast. So the book is an introduction. It's a basic introduction to why it's important that we have some particular practices and skills and holistic habits in our life before the crap hits the fan, if possible, so that when things do go pear-shaped, we are in a much better place of resilience and resistance to be able to manage the traumatic event in our life. And then it goes through how to deal with what to do in the middle of the traumatic event, and then recognizing the blessing of post-traumatic stress, the growth we go through after we've come out the other side.
Yeah. I mean, people make fun of me because I tell people I'm ADD and OCD. So I'm like balancing multiple plates at any particular point in time, but I'm OCD. So my plan A has an A, B, C, D. My plan B has a plan A, B, C, D, and on and on and on, because I like to account for about 90 to 95% of the stuff that may happen, so that 5% doesn't throw me.
Right, exactly.
People are like, you're such a pessimist in that area, but you're optimistic everywhere else. They call me an enigma. You know what? I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
But it's like, if I can handle, or at least have a plan for that 90 to 95, that other 5 to 10 really isn't going to toss me overboard.
So true.
And so, like you're saying, you have a doctor. Why do you not have a therapist or psychologist? Because
Right.
I know there's a stigma to it, but goodness, after 2020 alone, everybody should have one, honestly.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
mean, I joked, it was an ongoing joke. My people that follow me were cracking up because I said 2020 are like different levels of Jumanji. And it's like it just kept progressively getting worse each month. And finally, finally in February of 2021 in Texas, we had the Oregon Trail version of, that was like the finale. Well, I say that, but we have like tornadoes and flooding everywhere. So I don't know. We could still be doing it. I don't know.
Yeah.
And so I always make a joke out of stuff. That's usually how I get through it. But it's like, honestly, we had everything from murder hornets to lockdown to COVID, a pandemic to, it's like every time we turned around, all of a sudden there was something else getting thrown at us. There were fires there. And I was just like,
oh, it's crazy. Yeah. It's crazy.
And
yeah,
so at this point, I'm surprised not all of us are on some sort of a medication or have some sort of a nervous tick.
I know. I mean, it is, we have to laugh at it, because if you didn't laugh, you'd cry. But the reality is that the one thing that COVID has done is it really has opened up a lot of avenues for people to discuss mental health.
Mm-hmm.
I've seen that. I mean, there's a huge COVID mental health pandemic. We all focused on the COVID physical response, which was important, but now there's a big mental health pandemic. But the good thing is, so many people, certainly in some of the states I work with, so many of the states are making available mental health resources. And I'm thinking, wow, about time. They needed them before this, and now it's almost as if COVID has given everyone a reason to go and get mental help.
And it's like that lockdown. Yeah. Anything that was potentially going wrong in a relationship or in a home was just like magnified. So abuse went out just exploded. And it's like alcoholism, any type of drug use, any type of a vice was just like massively blown up. And it's just like they've done the thing where they've bucked up and gotten through, and now they've compartmentalized, and now they got to open that box back up, or things are going to blow up even worse.
So true. Yeah, you're right. And so many things sort of got hidden. Mm-hmm. One of the statistics was that domestic violence increased by 16% across the nation. And so, because of what you've been through, any one case is one too many.
Yeah. And so it's like, when you're in that situation, at least you can go to work or you can go somewhere to get away. But when your work is shut down and you're locked in for 30 days, it's like, if you don't have a good relation, I mean, thankfully, like I said, I'm in a better place. I'm in an excellent place. I call him Super Hubby, my husband, and he's my Prince Charming, the guy I never knew I needed till I met. And so, yeah, he and I, like, we're those couples that some couples, they fight if they're together too much. We fight if we're apart too much. We're one of those couples that need to be together. And we just function together. I mean, I stay at home, he's retired Navy, and so we work on the farm together, and it's just like we do everything together. And when we don't, there's a problem. That's where we run into problems. But not everybody has that relationship, because most couples are opposites.
Yeah.
And so that causes an issue.
Yeah.
So we have, I could talk to you all day. We've got about 3 to 5 minutes. Is there anything outside of your website? You need to still tell us your website. Is there anything else you'd like to add?
Yeah, I just want to add one more point. First of all, yes, I'll mention the website. My website is www.franhgraham.com. And Graham is Graham. So it's franhgraham.com. But one of the things I do want to mention, and this is a big hot button for me, is I want to encourage all of your listeners with this question. Are you kinder to other people than you are to yourself?
Hmm. Self-care is huge,
And
and people
I
are
also
like,
want, yeah, I
people
also
like
want to
bend
say,
over for everybody else. And I used to work security, and they said, if you walk up to some sort of situation, make sure you're safe before you help that other person.
exactly,
Because
exactly.
it's the
But
same thing on a plane. That's why the steward is safe. The mask drops, put it on yourself before you help somebody else.
right, but most people don't. They are surprised at their reaction to that question because they've not been asked that before. So when I say to anybody that I'm speaking to or working with, are you kinder to other people than you are to yourself? I find that that question actually really helps people dial in very, very quickly to how they need to adjust their self-care, because generally people are so generous with everybody else to the point of being sacrificial to their own needs.
Mhm.
So my big tip is be kinder to yourself than you are to other people. Otherwise, you won't have the capacity or the strength to stay in for the long haul. And just take time to be self-aware with what your needs are and take plenty of time out breaks to make sure you get what you need before you care for everyone else all the time.
Exactly. I mean, most of life is a marathon and not a sprint. There are a few sprint
Yeah.
situations, but most of them are a marathon and not a sprint. And we
Mhm.
need to pace and we need to care along the way.
So true. Yeah. And my book is full of all these kinds of tips that takes people from how to prepare before a traumatic situation hits, how to help themselves through the traumatic situation, and looking through the post-traumatic growth, and then how to pay it forward. So it covers all of those topics about how to implement self-care holistically. Most people respond to stress in 5 ways. That's mental, emotional, spiritual, physical, and behavioral. So I touch on all those 5 points because people miss some of them. And if one of those is off kilter, it affects your other areas.
Definitely. Well, Fran, thank you so much. It's been very enlightening to talk to. You were a delight to talk to as well. We really
Thank
appreciate you. Lots and lots of information. For those who want to find out more about Fran Graham, you go to www.frangraham.com, and her book is When Life Sucks.
What to do when life
What
sucks.
to do when life
Yeah.
sucks. I was close. But What to Do When Life Sucks, you can find it on Amazon. You can probably find it on our website too. That's franhgraham.com. Fran, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you, CJ. It's been a pleasure. Thank you so much for inviting me.
No problem. And thank you guys for listening to The Journey is Real. We talk to real people with real passions who share a real portion of their hearts. I'm CJ Peterson of cjpetersonwrites.com. Until next time.